Hello everyone, welcome to another Green Dragons Gaming. Without us, they'd never feel like winners. Without them, we couldn't look so good. So again, we're based out of Westchester. We're playing up at a store called Gamers Heaven. It's a more like a gaming cafe where they actually do sell food, video games, magic, tabletop gaming, and we're trying to grow our group. So that's it. That's about us. Now, for those of us ever in the area, please definitely come on out. We actually have a tournament coming up in September called the Dragon's Den. It's going to be a 2-day tournament. Uh, let's see. Standard rules. The rule packet is actually all made up. I'm going to hopefully have that fully posted via Google Docs up on the forums. And if you're interested, please definitely come out and join us. As I said, we're using the standard rules out of the big rule book, with one caveat being a dragon's egg. Long story short, you just simply pick a unit, and that unit has quote unquote the dragon's egg. And if you're able to get that unit into your enemy's deployment zone, you gain one additional victory point. If that unit is removed from the board, your enemy gains one victory point. That's it. Otherwise, just standard deployment. It has to be a scoring unit. So let's see here. This game that I turned around and I played, that would help, was Orcs vs. the Kingdom. I know I've been on my Equitane kick now for quite a few months, ever since Dan went ahead and got his dwarf army. I stopped playing my dwarves for a little bit. But this is a good old blood feud between the two of us. So Ryan's been doing exceptionally well in tournaments with this list, and this is going to be probably my tournament list it is my tournament list I'm bringing over to Buckeyes. So we're going to see how it does. For the most part, Ryan's been kicking my tail. As you notice, I myself personally have not been posting any battle reports. I had to I'll say it like this: I had to reset myself because it. One thing I've always said is like, look, this is a game. Have a beer, enjoy the guy in front of you. And I was getting so frustrated with my dice because they weren't rolling average. And that's the thing: is averages. You're going to roll 50% below, 50% above. And with KOE, one of the biggest things is to me anyway, it's a win big or go home. All right, at least with the style list that I have made, if you have more infantry, such as Knights of Forlorn and peasants and things like that, then it's easier to turn around and duke out those small wins and then go for the objectives. But that's not the style army that I've always enjoyed with KOE. I want that cavalry army. So part of it is definitely army design in me. So I just wanted to reset myself and actually have another battle report to post up, which case I lost. A little foreshadow there, but I definitely lost that game, lost it big. But again, that's what had me turn around and say, now it's time. I had fun. I had fun losing, and that's what matters. So here's our deployment. I forget what he was fixing something over there in the woods, but here's our deployment. This was before Vanguards. Oh, he was vanguarding his Spider Riders. He's got 2 units of Spider Riders, and going from his left or my left, so top middle of the screen down. He's got a giant. He's got a unit of Black Orcs with his general in there. That's a really nasty general. It's got the things that says, "I want to borrow your armor. I'm going to borrow your ward save." And then he's got paired weapons with lethal strike. It's a nasty kit out. Then he's got a unit of Spider Riders. He's got his goblins hiding behind the Spider Riders. That one base there is actually to represent the big unit of ferals that just wouldn't fit because of their base. He's got that second unit of Spider Riders and another giant. The chariot that you should be there on the board is actually going to be a giant. He is assembling a giant right now, so that's where that is. And from mine, going from left to right, I've got a unit of Knight Aspirants, Mounted Yeomen, 2 Scorpions. You see my general by himself, Duke Breslin. And the reason why is he has no shooting. I have nothing to worry about for shootings. And I didn't want him just tied into the Grails. And I actually thought about not putting my BSB in the Grails. In retrospect, that's what I should have done because I did pray. But originally, I was not going to pray. So then I've got my big brick of the Knights of the Realm with the impact banner. There's my level 4 mage from Druidism, and there's another unit of mounted yeomen. So we turn around, we started going drop, 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 and I looked at the board. For the most part, knew where he was going to set stuff up, dropped, and said I would like first turn. And the reason why I personally will do that sometimes, and it's not all the time, but sometimes, is I want that option to go first, or if I get the dice, or if I feel that it doesn't make a difference either way, then I'll say, let's go ahead and I'm going to pray. But I like having that option. I think that getting first turn, especially with KOE, is a massive, massive necessity at times. Okay, and it's not a whoever goes first is going to win the game. I just think that for this particular army, that's more or less what you want. Our secondary objective, by the way, is Spoils of War, hence the tokens you see on the board. So I prayed because I saw no downside of going second. If anything else, it brings them a little bit closer. So this is how it looks after he goes. And he tries to chat me up with one of his giants. Now the giants, I don't want the giant charging into me, per se. But at the same time, with where that giant is, it's like House of the Hunters, and anyone who's ever played KOE knows that, hey, I'm going to get countercharged by quite a bit. So what do I do in this particular case? I want to get either the giant to flee, or my thought process was to take the aspirants, him in the front, and then take the Grails or the Knights of the Realm, one of those two units, and have them hit the front as well. Because then if they're both in the front, one's going to go chaff up the Ironworks, and then the other one is going to go hopefully go towards the goblins, and the goblin riders forcing them to chaff that up. And then I would have the other two bricks to chaff him up in the back. And the giant, his positioning of the giant was one that had me scratching my head a little bit. Because the hill blocked the line of sight, I think there was a misplay on my opponent's part. That was definitely one of the mistakes, where I end up using the hill a little bit to block his giant from seeing my mounted yeoman and staying far enough away so I could save them as chaff. That was always one of my problems here earlier, was you waste your chaff too early relying on your speed. You gotta and one thing I've learned from my losing bout was you have to take your time. You have to wait for the right opportunities. And that's why having the scorpions are so key, because they give you that threat range, that necessary threat range that says, okay, you want to sit back, I'm going to kill what I need to kill, and then I'll send up whatever I need to send up at that point in time. So he got a spell off or gave them +1 movement. And during my turn, what happened is I'm going to go back 2 picks. So the giant, which is represented by the chariot, he accepted the charge from the aspirants. He chose to flee from the Knights of the Realm. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'm happy with that, because even if I go a max 6 inches, I'm still far enough away from the guys up on the hill, even with +2 movement. So to be speed 6 swift stride, rerollable. I'm all right with that. All right, because if he gets in, I'll hopefully have a decent chance to stick. And then it's kind of House the Hunters type of deal, because then he's got the aspirants in one flank, the realms in the other flank, the quests up the gut, the Duke. And that is the brick that I am most concerned about, because it is a stubborn brick with that general, and that general is hard as nails to deal with. So, his giant flees 3 inches, and that's how come my Grails are so far up. So, has me going, oh crap. So I turned around, I took my Knights of the Quest, and I put them all the way up. The reason why I did it, and he asked me, he felt that was a mistake. I'm like, I did it because now rather than having them shoot that gap and chaff up 2 of my units with that 1 unit, I'm forcing you now to give me your chaff, and there's nothing that can counter me, because I chaffed up his giant with my chaff. And my general was within 12 inches, and then I've got the Knight Aspirant sitting on top of one of the tokens, and he's got his ferals on top of one of the tokens as well. I forgot to mention he has a Wyvern Lord that is scary as anything. I mean, that Wyvern Lord is just designed to take names and ask questions later. It's got the Axe of the Apocalypse, so it just mulches through so many different things. Let's see. Um, he had me chaff, so what I do here is I do kill, I do take out his chaff. This is actually during his turn, so he actually charges into. So that's what I did. So during his turn, he chaffs me up with his other secondary unit of Spider Riders. He chaffs up, or he charges the Mounted Yeoman, hoping they would break. But again, the general was there within 12 inches, and he charges in the Grails. Now I had Stone Skin up on the Grails, and I believe I had Healing Waters up on the Grails too. So that there was going to be a very tanky unit, so I felt a little bit more secure about that. And oh no, I'm sorry, I had Stone Skin. He had rerolls his hits. So he charges. So he does all those charges, and he's trying to get around my flank with the giant. I definitely see that coming. And all I can say is, peasants, they're meant to die. During combat, so this is actually after 2 rounds of combat, he charged in with his Black Orcs, and he kills nothing. He kills none of my knights. Okay, where I killed like 5 of his orcs, and that's with his general. That's with now we figured out he was missing 1 phylum because of the spider riders were blocking him. And the thing is he could complete the charge. Because you're able to complete the charge, you don't close the door. It's only if you can't complete the charge is when you would turn around and close that door. So he got that reroll misses up off of them. So now during my turn, okay, and I'm sorry, going back to that other combat, I also took about 6 or 8 of my attacks and just put them directly on his unit champion. And he's like, that's a lot of attacks just for a champion. I only did 1 wound. All right, I think I did total 2 wounds, and he saved 1 of them. But I need, out of those 6, I had, let's see. Let's say I threw 6, so I do, on average, 3 hits, because both weapons skill 5, and then on average, I'm only doing 1 to 2 wounds, which I did 2, and then he has a third of a chance, so he should save 1 of them, and that's exactly what happened. So that killed his champion. That, to me, was key. I had to have that done for what I want to do next. So the following turn, I go ahead, rather than charge the giant, and I did think about charging the giant. I don't know if that was a mistake or not charging the giant, but I charged in with my Duke into the Ironworks. Sorry, I keep wanting to go back to their old original name. I took my Knights of the Quest. I killed the chaff, and the giant, for whatever reason, I had backed up my aspirants last turn because I was sitting on one of the objectives. I didn't want to risk getting run down by that or having that giant charge me because the odds are highly in the giant's favor. The Knights of the Realm made easy pickings of that other unit, but when I reformed, I made sure I was within 6 inches of the Mounted Yeoman, which were chaffing up his other giant, so that his giant could not get into the Knights of the Realm. That, to me, was key, was to protect them, because I'm not worried about so much the giant gain in my rear, because, you know what, he'll win combat, I'll be steadfast, I'll stick, I got my general, my BSB, but I really didn't want to stick around with the Wyvern and the Feral Orcs. On top of that, I wanted to go in there and help out my my general and my Knights of the Grail. He ends up charging in to the flank with his giant of the Knights of the Grail. I had no way to stop that because that's the key thing is had my no, even still I wouldn't be able to stop that. He still could have done shenanigans. So just the way it is. Let's see. He did some maneuvering over there, and here's my next picture. My bolt throwers, by the way, actually were doing their job. So they had put 3 wounds on the giant previously from a single shot, and this time they actually killed the giant. So that giant, I think, is 300 points. Both those scorpions put together is 250 points, and it was also keeping his wyvern at bay. All right, because he had to respect them because those either one of those two bolt throwers, those 2 scorpions, has the potential to drop his wyvern lord with 1 hit, 1 shot. So when it came to that combat, I want to go back a few pictures here. Well, you just saw everything that just occurs, but I want to go back to this picture where he's moving his giant in. So his giant turnaround between his giant and his iron orcs, they killed the grails to a man. He needed just 1 grail there. He didn't want to do 7 wounds, and that's what he did. He did 7 wounds to that unit. Meanwhile, I did, I think, 6 wounds to him because my general one-timed his general. Even though he's stealing my 1-up armor, I have lethal strike on my lord that does D3 wounds. I got my lethal strike and I did 3 wounds all in 1 shot. So that completely changed that atmosphere by his unit killing the grails, because now the giant was out of combat because the duke was on his own, so the giant did not slide over, and it really had nothing because that unit of Knights of the Quest, after I killed the Spider Riders, reformed. We just didn't move. We said we know where they are, into to face the flank of that unit of his other orcs. So now going back ahead. So this is him maneuvering, and the Knights of the Realm charge into the giant. The giant chose to flee, bounces through. So they redirect into his iron orcs. Between the impact hits and their attacks and the Duke, wipe the iron orcs to a man. And the Knights of the Quest turn to face, and eventually they end up declaring that charge on that wyvern. And because I'm trying to remember why he moved his wyvern. Unfortunately, I don't remember. I think he moved it there, wanting me to go ahead and charge him because of his big axe. But I had the flank, I had the front. My BSB, I think I may have taken my BSB out of the unit when they did that. When they charged out, I flat out, I don't remember. And what we end up with after the Wyvern Lord is gone and he gets a Raven Wings off is he tries chaffing up my units, being the Knights of the Realm and the Aspirants, so he can't get them into his ferals. And meanwhile, my Paladin, that's what I did. I chaffed up his unit of ferals with my Paladin by himself. And the Paladin did 3 wounds, and he did 1 to me. So because of my 3 wounds, he had charge, rank, banner, and 1 wound, and I had banner and 3 wounds. So we ended up bouncing. He's like, yeah, that should happen. I still remember that. So they end up sticking. He ends up reforming, keeping 3 in base contact with my Paladin. I have my general there with my Knights of the Quest at this point in time. They go into the front. The Realm and the Aspirants go into the flank of the Goblins. I kill the Goblins down to 2 Goblins that fail their DTs running through the terrain. And I kill the ferals just flat out outright. So end of the day ends up being a victory to the kingdom. So for the MVP, and because I still have my aspirant sitting on one of the objectives, it was 20-0. So again, just because you table your opponent does not mean you get the 20-0. You actually still have to get the objective. With that said, MVPs was that Goblin Shaman. So I did hint at it during the report. I know I didn't talk a lot about it, but he kept getting off that it was either rerolls to wound or I think it was rerolls to hit. It's not rerolls to wound, but it's rerolls to hit, and that's what allowed him to kill the Ground Knights, because his giant, when it first went in there with its attacks, did one hit, and his Iron Orcs did like 2 or 3 hits. So they actually, had he not killed him to that turn, actually would have won combat. All right, and that would have been another game changer. So I was really, really happy. Granted, I had to add that buff, but I was really happy on how that unit performed, and especially with utilizing the magic. And I liked having my Lord on his own rather than being stuck in that unit. Because again, if he was in that unit, he would have had flank, charge, flank, big flank. But because the unit was gone, those 3 disappeared from the combat score. And for myself, it was my Duke Breslin. He killed the Lord. He was holding up the Iron Orcs by himself. He was doing typically 3 wounds a turn. So I was very, very happy with his kit out and how it actually performed this game. If you have any questions or concerns, definitely feel free to reach out to me. Either here, I'm SirMC2015 up on the forums. And until next time, happy gaming.